Hey everyone, and welcome back for episode 33 of Ionan's Edge. Today's review is on the Urban EDC F5.5 Titanium. I'm going to jump right in with some basic specs. This modified Wharncliffe blade uses a flat high grind M390 blade steel. It has titanium CNC machined scales with nested liners. It is a liner lock knife riding on dual ceramic ball bearings, and it is manually deployed. It's also worth noting that this knife is designed by Jesper Voxnaes, and this is taken from his Vox F5 design. Other specs on the knife: it has a usable fine cutting edge of 2 5/8 inches. It is 4 inches from the front to this back portion here of the titanium scales, and the tip to tail length on this knife is 6 7/8 inches. It weighed in at 4.4 ounces on my digital scale. So a pretty light knife. You would expect that, being as how it's all titanium. What I like about the knife: the F5.5 scores big in the looks department. This is in every way, shape, and form a beautiful knife with beautiful machining on the titanium, nested liners, tie back spacer, tie clip, and just an absolutely gorgeous blade that actually does cut very well. The workmanship and tuning on this knife is stellar. The detent and the action on this knife is perfect. It's one of the few knives I can actually spidey flick, but man, it's just very satisfying to flick this knife open. And it does actually have a pretty high fidget factor in that respect for a fairly small knife. The spine on the knife is 4 millimeters thick in the back, so it's pretty thick, but then obviously, as you can see, because it has a high flat grind, it tapers right down, pretty thin in the front, and it's really great. This blade is great for a lot of different cutting, utility cutting especially. It's also really good for it, and it inspires a lot of confidence when you're using it. I love the blade on this knife. It's one of my favorite things about this knife is this blade design and shape, and the way that they put this edge on here. It just does a fantastic job of cutting. So, what are my issues? What don't I like? The most glaring issue that I have with this knife is the lack of good ergos. So, having other Vox designed knives in my collection, I'm puzzled by this small forward choil. It's actually uncomfortable. It digs into my index finger when I use this knife. And that's just not something that I enjoy. I don't like choils that are small or undersized to begin with, but when the choil actually digs into my hand right there, that it's just not a comfortable choil design. I feel like they could have widened this out down here a little bit and made this fit a lot of other people's hands. And although I have large glove size hands and my hands are a little wide this way, I have pretty average size fingers. I cannot imagine what people with really big, thick fingers would think of this knife. Well, actually, I can, because I know a couple of people that have had this knife that have bigger hands than me, and it's one of their chief complaints. The knife could have 2 good grip positions. Despite this choil issue, it could have this rearward grip position here, but the problem is they didn't put any jimping back here on the spine of the blade. It's only way up front, so you have to be in the choil position, and you have to have your thumb well forward like this in order to use the blade with confidence. And again, we're talking about a pretty expensive knife here. We're not talking about a budget knife. So why they couldn't have just doubled up this jimping and brought it, say, back to like right here and made it nice and clean and just line right up with the ends, the front edge of both of the scales, I don't know. So that really takes away that that other hand position, because your thumb always wants to be here, and it just doesn't feel very good. The spoon on the pocket clip. You get a tie pocket clip. It is not reversible, by the way. So you only get right side pocket clip. But the spoon is so large and so deep that when you're actually doing any real cutting tasks, like I did, I cut through a bunch of cardboard with this knife twice and used it for a few other cutting tasks. This spoon just really digs into your hand right here. And I actually had not only a red mark and a hot spot from using this, but an impression right here in my hand that was just a smidge shy of forming a blister. So I'm really not sure. I mean, I like that they gave you some space underneath here, but then they didn't give you countersunk screws. But then you have this humongous spoon pocket clip, and it just really is not comfortable. You can feel this pocket clip in both of these hand positions a lot. Like I said, the knife cuts well, but when you're doing a bunch of cutting with it, you're really gonna feel that. And then there's only one deployment method, which is the blade cutout. And although that works well, and I can Spidey flick this knife, I feel like I'll give them a pass on that simply because the detent and the lockup on this knife is tuned so well that it's going to open in that position. I think very few people would have trouble opening this knife, even though this is the only deployment method. And finally, the CNC milled wave/fan pattern that they put on this knife. It's absolutely exquisite. It's stunning. It looks fantastic. But it doesn't, the way that it's cut is very round, is very smooth. It doesn't really have a ton of texture to it. So you don't really get that feel like the scales are really functioning as grips, as scales on the knife. They look fantastic, but they just don't have the feel that I would like. Again, no hot spots on the scales or anything, but just not really a lot of grip or texture there. So let's do a couple quick size comparisons. So here is the F5.5. And here, I'm going to put it up against a really budget price knife to start off with. This is a Kubi Durock. Okay? Almost identical in size. Very similar in overall build size. There's certainly differences in the thickness of the blades. I can't compare those two things. But this is another, Wharncliffe style knife with a very similar, slightly upswept blade and a Warney tip on the front of it. And as you can see, pretty similar handle length. Now, I will say the Kubi Durock is way more comfortable. Why? Because first of all, it doesn't use a choil, and it has a nice flat scale design to it. But I can't really say I'm going to put a $50 knife in the same category as this F5.5. Just kind of give you a comparison size-wise and handle-wise. The next knife I'm going to bring in is another Vox design. This is the Giant Mouse Ace Biblio. I love this knife. Even this knife, which doesn't have a huge forward choil on it, has a bigger forward choil on it than the 5.5. It's really strange. This one just digs into my hand like nobody's business. And this one, even though it's not the hugest one, it fits. I can put my hand there and I don't have a hot spot right up here at where the blade radius is up to the cutting edge. So I'm really not sure what happened on the 5.5 with this forward choil. You can physically see how much bigger this choil is, there you go, than the one on this knife. This whole area right in here is just kind of in the way. And then finally, I'm going to bring in the knife that I reviewed recently, which is the EMP EDC Nimble. Definitely in the same size class, but oh my gosh, there's no comparison ergo-wise. The Nimble has it all over the F5.5, hands down. The Nimble has this huge choil, great ergos, and hey, look what they did here. Imagine if they had done this on the F5.5. Why? Why not? Why not put this jimping all the way back to say like right there and give you lots of choices on where you want to put your finger? They didn't do that. I don't know what to say. But here I just showed you 3 knives. You got a knife that's in the $50-ish price range, a knife that's around $195, a knife that's about $280. So that just gives you some idea of what some other knives in that same size category are like. So let me summarize. This knife, it's beautiful, it's well crafted, but it's a conundrum. It leaves me wanting a bigger forward choil, wanting extended spine jimping like I just showed on the Nimble, wanting a pocket clip that doesn't dig in and cut into my hand. It's beautiful, it's well made, it has impeccable tuning, and the action on it is very, very good. The blade is amazing. I love this blade. If I could fix all the other ergos on this knife and make a little bigger choil and keep this blade, I would love it. I would love to see this blade on another knife. I tell myself, boy, I wouldn't mind seeing what the knife's like in micarta, but that would only fix the scale and grip issues. It wouldn't fix these other design issues that exist on this knife. So, that kind of leaves me in a weird place. For me, this knife at $299, I'm told that's what this particular version of this knife sells for. You can save, I guess, about $50 by going with a micarted version or G10 or something like that, and that puts you down around $249. But this knife at $299 with these ergos, for me, is a pass. Others are going to probably disagree, and that's fine. You're welcome to do that. Not every knife is for everyone. But my honest assessment is there are other knives, better knives, that are in similar or lower price points. So that's what I've got to say about this knife. I wish I wanted to love it. I love the way it looks. I love the fit, finish, and workmanship, but the F5.5 is going to be a pass for me. So that's all I've got, folks. I tried to give you as honest review as I possibly could. Some of you might really love this knife. I don't. Thanks as always for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my content to my channel for more content. And as always, folks, stay sharp.